can use the timer on me, I'll do it in less than 3 minutes.
Are you all that's up today?
Yeah.
Livability Committee. This is Councilwoman Monica Peters. I am chairing today in the absence of Councilmember Wesley Hudson. We do have a quorum here today. We have Councilmember Michael Holmes is present in the room, and Councilman Cyril Jefferson is here in the room. And we have a presentation today from Eric Olmedo. So go ahead, Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. We had been asked by council to bring back some information regarding Juneteenth and a holiday proposal, so we put together some slides for that, so we'll go through those. Just to give a little context, Juneteenth celebrates the country's longest-running observance of the abolition of slavery. The holiday commemorates the emancipation of slaves in Texas on June 19th, 1865, after Union soldiers landed in Galveston. The slaves in this region were the last to learn of their freedom. And this was a holiday that was initially celebrated in Texas, but it's grown in its observance and is spread across the nation. And as you may know, the federal government recognized this as a federal holiday this past June. Every year, June 19th marks the day that African Americans exercise independence from those who benefited from their labors in the founding of this nation. And like I just said, government units nationwide and across the nation and across the state of North Carolina have recognized this as a holiday. So we wanted to look at this holistically within our total holidays that the city observes. So currently the city offers 9 paid holidays with a total of 11 days off annually. New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Good Friday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, Labor Day, Veterans Day, and then 2 days at the Thanksgiving break and 2 days for the Christmas holiday. What we did is looked across the state at the 20 largest cities. As you know, we're the 9th largest city, so it's a good mix of cities and populations. And so 7 cities, including High Point, currently offer 11 days off annually. 6 cities offer 12 days off annually, and 7 cities offer 13 days off annually. So the majority of cities are in that 12 to 13 day off range. And then specifically the cities that now offer Juneteenth as a holiday, there's 11 cities in North Carolina in that group of 20: Apex, Asheville, Chapel Hill, Cary, Durham, Greensboro, Greenville, Jacksonville, Raleigh, Rocky Mount, Winston, Salem. And we understand that Charlotte is having these same conversations right now to add that as a holiday for 2022. That's the information that we have. This last page is just the data that our staff looked at. So most cities offer the same holidays. There are a few cities that have floating holidays in lieu of maybe a Good Friday holiday or another holiday. So that's the information we prepared. We're happy to have any questions, to answer any questions you may have.
Do you have any questions, Cyril or Michael?
Yeah, if this is Councilman Jefferson, just curious about the floating holiday, and certainly I know the focus of this presentation is around Juneteenth, but I guess while we're seeing it here kind of as a sidebar conversation, I've heard of the floating holiday mostly used, I guess, mostly to kind of say to employees who maybe they're not looking to honor Christmas, but maybe they want to float those holiday days to like another, maybe, I don't know, Hanukkah or Ramadan or something like that, to kind of honor and recognize their own religious beliefs. Is that what that's speaking to, or is that speaking to something else?
It's really something else. If you notice, and let me see if I can point out, like in Concord, I know, they don't, I'm sorry, I need my glasses. In some cases, the floating holiday may be where they only offer 1 day at Christmas. And so it just gives employees an opportunity to dictate where they want that holiday to fall. And in most cases, in a city operation, we have employees that can't take every holiday off. And so kind of a different conversation is for those that are maybe in public safety or public services where, you know, they may have to work on a Christmas Day or New Year's Day, that we give the employees the opportunity to take a different day off in that case. But specifically to the floating holiday, a lot of times it just depends. If they may not offer 2 days at Thanksgiving or 2 days at Christmas, they offer a floating holiday for the employee to choose.
So Eric, the preference, this is Councilman Holmes, the preference is to add this as one of our standard days off, or as a floating holiday that can be observed for Juneteenth?
From a staff perspective, I think we would prefer to have that day designated. I think administratively, it's easier, and it gives that recognition, that observance on the day of. And so I think that's important too. As you know, there are a lot of celebrations now commemorating that day, and so we want to give our employees the opportunity to participate in those commemorations.
Madam Chairwoman, if you don't mind, I'd like to go a little bit further on the last point I was making. Is that okay? Yeah. So I'm curious, and most of this just has to do with, in the spirit and I think application of DEI, I think beliefs and practices. And I really say this also as a business owner who had to reconcile and kind of reckon with the same thing for us, which was you have employees who may not recognize. I mean, if we look at it, most of the holidays here, or not most of them, but outside of them being national holidays for like national events, they're typically Judeo-Christian holidays. And while that may be my belief, and I'm absolutely fine recognizing Judeo-Christian holidays, I also wonder if there's any consideration we should be given for, to your point there, I think you said if someone has to work on a Christmas, they get to then choose where they put that holiday day at. I'm almost wondering, because it sounds like that mechanism could be easily transferred to if someone chooses to say, for example, I don't want to use my PTO on Hanukkah, but I'd rather, instead of taking Christmas off, take Hanukkah off because Hanukkah recognizes the Judaism faith, or Ramadan, or, I mean, you could, you know, I know this is probably not what we plan to talk about, but I'm almost wondering now if it's worth us doing some exploration on something like that. I know our director of HR is here, and I don't know if in the field of HR, if that's something that's been talked about. I know some private sector businesses and entities do it. I don't know if here in the public sector, if that's something that's a little too far off, or if, I guess in terms of how we handle it, if it's just, I don't know, too much. But I think it's worth considering, especially as an entity, that's something that we're wanting to create the single most livable, safe, and prosperous community.
Yeah, I will just say, I think that's something that we need to explore, that we're fully unprepared to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll let Ms. Kirkwood.
Yeah, this is Angela Kirkwood, Director of Human Resources. In response to your question, what the city is trying to do is acknowledge the federal holidays to be consistent from a benefit standpoint, and that is the primary reason in terms of why we, you know, one of the reasons why we looked at this, because it is a benefit that, as he demonstrated in the slides, our competitors and other municipalities, those are our competitors. So when employees are considering the city of High Point, the first thing they do is they look at the benefit portfolio. How many holidays do they offer? You know, how does the vacation accumulate? How do the sick days? What are they contributing to the 401k? So when this was proposed, it's to keep us competitive as an employer. And in response to your question regarding floating holidays, that is more, I'd probably say I've seen that more traditionally in the private sector, and it's not specifically to say, oh, if you don't want this holiday, you can use this day. It's been designed for an employee to have flexibility, and you can choose a floating holiday to go on a vacation with your family. So it really is designed for flexibility, but municipalities tend to be more structured and more streamlined so that we can be competitive with each other.
Absolutely. So I know you mentioned, Assistant Manager Olmedo, that we weren't prepared to talk about this today. So I totally recognize that and appreciate any information that's being provided today. And perhaps it's worth looking at down the road and at least having more information. But to your point there around, you know, other municipalities or even the federal government, state government, county government, I'm wondering out there if there were any governments who are doing similar things like that, to the point of, while I get some folks want to use it for floating holidays for vacations, and I know some people will say, hey, they could just use their PTO to recognize that whatever their holiday is, when in some ways, when you say this is the organization-sponsored holiday that you don't have to use your PTA for, and it's all Judeo-Christian, and then here's the holiday that you have to use your PTO for because we don't, I don't know, it's in some ways, that's a conversation I think worth having and at least thinking about. If we find that in government and public sector, that's just absolutely not done because we try to keep with the federal holidays, and I get that, and I feel better saying we did our due diligence. I don't know if Deputy Manager McCaslin, were you about to say something about that?
Yes, sir. I don't want to prolong the discussion, but from an operational standpoint, having employees picking and choosing when they take days off would be pretty much a nightmare. We have crews that have to work together. We have responsibilities of providing services to the citizens. So adding that level of flexibility in on the employee's part would be very tough for us to schedule efficient service.
So to that point, though, the ones who do it in the private sector, typically you get it approved at the beginning of the year. So just like right now, we're approving the company-sponsored holidays for the year. If you're someone who wants to apply sort of for a proviso, such that you're saying, hey, this year I like, to, instead of honoring Christmas holiday, I like to honor, another holiday, or instead of honoring Good Friday, for example, which is very Judeo-Christian, I like to honor this other holiday over here. And it gets approved at the beginning of the year such that you're able to make your plans. It's not one of those things like, I converted my faith today, and next Friday I think I want a 3-day weekend. That's, so it's again, I'm not saying we gotta make decisions today, but I know we represent a city of 120,000, the international city of North Carolina, right? Which means that we get folks from all over the world with all types of beliefs and all types of traditions that they honor, and I just think it's at least worth the conversation. That's my point today. But in terms of the actual Juneteenth, I like to make a motion that we, go ahead and add Juneteenth as a holiday to the recommendation of what staff has. It seems like action needs to be taken on this because I imagine this would have some kind of budgetary impact.
Well, it doesn't have a direct budgetary impact. It's more of a productivity impact. We aren't paying our employees any more than we currently are. It's just fewer days one fewer day to accomplish the same goals and tasks. And like I mentioned, so there are employees that would not be able to take June 19th off. And so it's just, again, it's that scheduling that we have to accomplish. The other thing I meant to mention was, and I believe June 19th falls on a Saturday this year, so we would recognize that the previous day on the Friday. If it falls on a Sunday, we would recognize that on the Monday.
So to that point, when we looked at it for June 2022, June 19th falls on a Sunday, which means that Monday council meeting, we would have to adjust.
Correct.
To either being on a Tuesday or something.
So did you make a motion?
I was asking, do we need to make a motion?
I think you make a motion to recommend this to the full council.
Yeah, so that's my motion, so moved, that we
Okay.
recommend this.
I'll second.
Okay, so now it's open for discussion. I would like to bring up one point. Thank you, Mrs. Kirkwood. That was spot on what you said. I think that making us competitive, a lot of the cities not far from here offer it, and I think that giving us that competitive edge is important as a business organization and as an employer. So I'll vote for that. So anyway, all right, so we'll take roll. So Councilman Holmes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Jefferson, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I, Councilwoman Monica Peters, vote aye to take this to full council. Any other discussion or anything else need to be brought up in P&L? Okay, this meeting is adjourned.
Fantastic.